Team Be Stalwart. Hey, this is Heidi Bejo, and we are following up on the first video we had for our Welcome to Labor of Love and our brain dump. So before we jump in today, though, I want to give a huge thank you to everyone who has posted their introduction. Thanks so much for taking the time to do that. And first off, it really helps Inga and I get to know each one of you a little bit better. Some of the people in this group are clients of mine and some of them are clients of Inga's. And since we co-coach this together, it just helps us get to know everyone a little bit better. Secondly, it helps y'all get to know each other better too. So we are all in this group together to get better. So please, please, please reach out and encourage each other. I mean, we want you lifting each other up as much as we're going to be here lifting you up. So please be interactive and please support and love and lift each other up. If you have not posted your introduction yet, please do that. We really would appreciate it. And you'll find those, if you go back to the very first post that Inga put up, it has a picture of her and I. That's the quickest way to find it if you're just scrolling. If you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see a picture of Inga and I, and that's kind of the welcome to the group deal. And if you go in the comments section there, that's where we'd like you to post your introduction. So please get that done if you haven't done it already. And again, to those that have, thank you very much. Okay, back to it. So hopefully your brain dump is done, and hopefully you use the personal and professional trigger lists for that brain dump that we uploaded for you. Those, if you couldn't find those, just a reminder, they're in the info and files section of the app. And if you're having trouble locating that, definitely just reach out to Inga or myself and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. Okay, now let's talk about that big pile that's been sitting on your counter staring at you for the past couple days. One caveat here before I get in even further is if you have not done a brain dump yet, I would encourage you to go back to the previous video. I will be wearing in that one a purple shirt. So go back to that video and watch that first and then come back to this video. So let's tackle that pile. And as far as this exercise and how long it will take to tackle that pile, I honestly can't really give you a time estimate on that just because I'm not really sure how big your pile is. If you only had, 10 or 15 things, this will probably take, I don't know, 20 minutes. If you have 100 things, you may have to block out time in sections to get this done. So normally when I'm providing exercises for folks, I like them to, kind of have a bandwidth on what the timeline would be. But in this case, I really just don't know because, again, I don't know how big the pile is that's staring at you right now. So what I will say is similar to the trigger lists, the guidelines I'm going to walk through in this video are primarily based, at least the first time I heard them, on the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. So I mentioned that book, Getting Things Done, and that author, David Allen, in the previous video when we were talking about brain dumps and the trigger list. Again, these guidelines kind of come from him. I'm not saying other folks don't use them. I know proponents such as Michael Hyatt talk about them, Brendon Burchard talks about them, other people. For me personally, the first time I heard them was in the Getting Things Done book many years ago. So get your mind right and let's dive in. And the reason I say get your mind right is what we want you to do is you're going to take that pile and you're going to pull the first piece of paper off that pile and you're going to look at that one and you're going to process it. And I'm going to walk you through what that process looks like. And then you're going to pick up the next one and so on and so forth. When I say get your mind right, what I mean is don't pick up a piece of paper and say, oh, I really don't want to deal with this one and put it at the bottom of the pile. The goal is to deal with each one as they come up and process it and just get it done. Hence the name. Okay, so we pick up our first piece of paper and we're looking at it, and then there are several options of how we handle whatever this thing is. The first option is to dump it. Is it something that's been floating around in your brain for weeks or maybe even months? Like you wanted to read a magazine article, and truthfully, if you look at the article, it's like 3 years old and completely irrelevant. Or truly, where I want to go with this is, we're all very busy. We all talk about how busy we are. If you if you barely have your head above water, I want you to look at whatever's on this piece of paper that you picked up off the top of your pile and say, do I really need to even do it or worry about it? And the reason I say that is a lot of us are people pleasers, guilty, and we say yes to everything and everyone. And it is very important to learn to say no. And it's important to let things go. And that really, when we get into the goals section coming up here in the future for this group, sometimes we have to say no to things so we can say yes to the changes and the things that we really want to do. I mean, if we want to live our priorities, there are things we have to say no to, and it's okay. If it's a selfish thing in a healthy way, then we need to get comfortable with that and realize that it's okay to do that. And again, this is a tough one for me. I am no doubt a people pleaser, and I still struggle with this. So maybe this video is part therapy for me, but you're not alone. I definitely struggle with this. But really look at each item, and maybe what you just need to do is dump it, throw it in the garbage, forget about it, let it go, and move on. So the next thing, as we're staring at this, if we decide we're not going to get rid of it, we're not going to dump it, the next thing you want to ask yourself as you're looking at this paper is, can I just do it like right now and get it done and have it off my plate? So the guideline for this, if you look at the Getting Things Done protocol, is 2 minutes. So if you pick up the piece of paper and whatever it is takes less than 2 minutes, you should just do it right then, because it's not worth getting it scheduled out or whatever. You could have it done by the time you process it some other way. So they again use a 2-minute time frame for that. You can set that time frame to whatever you want. Maybe you prefer to just, even if it takes 5 minutes, you'd rather just get it done and not have to worry about it. For example, if you have to just call and schedule an appointment to get your hair colored and cut, it doesn't make sense to plan that out in your calendar. We're sitting here, you picked up the piece of paper, it takes a couple minutes, pick up the phone, make the appointment, and then throw that piece of paper away because it's done. So part of this is just getting those little things off your plate. And there's one caveat to this that I would say, because might be the first brain dump you've ever done, in your big pile, you may have a whole bunch of 2-minute items or 5-minute items, whatever time frame you pick. In that case, and if you don't have enough time at this moment, which I understand, you may, and I do this myself, if I have a whole bunch of 2-minute things that need to be done and I literally just don't have time, because when I add up all the 2 minutes, it's, say it's 30 minutes, what I will do is block out some time in my calendar and I will schedule it, and I just call it 2-minute drill, and then I'll paperclip that pile of papers together and write 2-minute drill on the front, and then when that's time to do that in my calendar, then I just bang all those out at once. I kind of estimate how long, if it's going to take me 30 minutes or 45 minutes, so I'll kind of just block that time out and then I just bang all those out at once. Ideally though, it's better to just do it in the moment, and if you're doing a frequent brain dump, like on a weekly basis or something like that, it's a little bit easier to make that happen. I know the first time it can be very overwhelming to have enough time to get all your 2-minute things done. The next one, so say we're not going to dump it, say it's going to take longer than 2 minutes, so we're not going to do it right now. Another option is to delegate it. And I know this doesn't always seem like an option, but I encourage you to think outside the box. And truthfully, delegating, we're trying to use all D words here, which you'll figure out as we get through the list, but sometimes delegating really just means asking for help if you need it. So don't be afraid to do that if you truly need help. Some just general examples of things that can be delegated would be, I have a friend who works in senior housing in a different capacity, but that's the profession that I work in. And she has so we go to conferences a lot, and we get a bunch of business cards from people, you're meeting people, whatever, and then you come home and you're staring at, 15 business cards that you need to, get their contact information in your files and in your database and whatever. And I have a friend who basically, she has her daughter do this. So you can obviously get an app on your phone that will scan the business cards, and then you kind of have to go back and double check the information to make sure that it's in there correctly. But she has her daughter do it because for her, as an executive, it doesn't make sense for her to do it. And truthfully, she just doesn't want to ask her assistant to do it either because she wants her working on some higher level activities. So she has her daughter do that for her. So I just thought that was kind of a clever idea. Another ideas would be, there's nothing wrong with having chore lists for your children. Have your daughter wash out the aquarium, have your son run the vacuum cleaner. And I will say, total pause here. I'm very, very sensitive when I say stuff like that because I personally do not have children. So I'm not saying that maybe yours aren't old enough or maybe that's difficult. So I don't want to assume that that's an easy thing to do. Being on the other end of that, though, I will tell you, and Inga can attest to this, that our dad took every opportunity he could to lengthen our chore lists around the house and the yard and the barn and wherever. So I'm just saying, on the receiving end, I know that that's possible because I did it my entire childhood through college until I was out of the house. So, and I don't want to say my dad's I don't want to say bad things about my dad. He's a great dad. And truthfully, I'm thankful he did that because it taught all of us to have a very strong work ethic. So it's all good, but think about it. Hopefully you can make it work for you. Another idea would be to, this is one of my favorite things that kind of saves time at the grocery store. So what I do is I have a list that is shared, and my husband and I have it on our phones, and we keep a running grocery list. So, and you could share this if your children are old enough and they have a phone, and you want everyone to get on board with this, all the better. So basically the thought is, and it doesn't always work perfectly, but the thought is if you finish something or take the last thing or whatever, then you type it onto the grocery list. And because that's a shared file for my husband and I, then we both always have a current list. So whoever has time to stop at the grocery store, then you might not, maybe in the beginning you were thinking, oh, I just got to stop and get a gallon of milk or whatever. But the reality is it's more efficient if you always have that full grocery list, and hopefully you can just bang that out and get everything that is needed. And sometimes it saves you from having to do those big grocery trips. So food for thought there. Another idea would be, I hired a high school kid many years ago to basically organize. I travel a lot for work, and I hired them to organize my receipts and help prepare my expense reports. So for me, being that I don't have children, I had to pay someone else's child to do this for me. But it was a similar thing for me. Number one, I absolutely detest doing expense reports. I don't know why, but I hate it. So number one, I just don't like doing it. And number two, if I take the same amount of time that it takes me to do expense reports, I'm actually better off paying her to do it so I can work on higher leverage activities. And I'm kind of panicking about that right now because she's been with me for years and she just graduated from nursing school, and I am so proud of her, but I'm selfishly bummed because I know I'm losing her help. But that's a whole other video and therapy session for me. So so far we've gone through 3 choices for each piece of paper. First one is dump it, just get rid of it and wipe it out of your mind. Second one is do it, that's our 2-minute drill, so if it takes less than 2 minutes, just get it done. And third is delegate, ask for help, whatever it is. Maybe ask your parents to come take the kids to the park for an hour so you can deep clean the bathrooms, whatever. Think outside the box. Hopefully you can think of some ways to get, more things done in a short amount of time doing it that way. So the last one is to defer it. And what that means is don't have time right now, can't really ask somebody else to do it, can't throw it in the garbage, so you defer it. And what you're going to do here, there's kind of 2 things I want to talk about here. One is you can just block out time sometime in the future in your planner or calendar. So, like if I'm going through a pile of, a brain dump pile, and one of the things is prepare a loan analysis for a prospective client. That on average takes about an hour and a half. So I need to really just look at my calendar as to how quickly first I need to look at some emails, figure out how quickly I told them we'd get it back to them. And then I just need to block that time out in my calendar. So once it's scheduled, then being that I have it in my planner or my calendar now, I can throw away the brain dump paper because it's deferred but scheduled in the future. The other thing when you're deferring that may be helpful for you, and I've been a fan of this for a really long time, is a trigger file. This is also known as 42 folders. If you Google it, you'll find examples. It's basically, and you can do this digitally with different computer files with layers, or you can do it old school with manila folders, whichever way works best for you. Doesn't really matter. Pick what works for you. But what you do, I'm just going to assume you use manila folders at this point, but you can set up your file directories the same way if you want to do it electronic. But you basically take, the reason it's known as 42 folders is you take 42 folders and 12 of those you label January through December, and then the other ones you label 1 through 31. And it becomes this rolling reminder file. So if we look at today, this video is going to be posted on September 28th. So in my trigger file, the very front folder would be the September file, and then right behind that would be 28, 29 to the end of the month. And then the next file would be October. And then after that, I'll have 1 through 27 because those days are already done in September. And then the next file will be November, December, January, back to August. So basically every day then what you do is you go in, you pull out the current day, open that up, and that helps you game plan the day. Those are things that need to be done on that particular day, and then you'll have to look at your schedule and figure out how you fit them in. And then when I'm done with that day, I just put it at the very end of the pile of the next month. So it just kind of rolls forward. Super slick and great for save the dates for weddings. If you want to put reminders in there to buy birthday gifts or Christmas cards, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Bills, you can put bills in there if you're, if you're not on auto pay online, or you're not at a point where you can pay your bills as they come in and you need some strategy there. You can put your bills in there when you're able to pay them. I use it for all kinds of things, work follow-up. If I'm volunteering, it doesn't matter. I mean, just use it for your life. It's not really meant to be a work thing or a home thing. For me, it's all blended, and I just use it for everything. So again, highly recommend that. When I used to teach high school, I used trigger files for my kids, actually, for my students in my class. So it doesn't really matter how old. You might want to teach it to your kids. So if I know you're in college, I think we talked about these, but don't forget about them. You might find that of value as well. And it's just been a great system. So if you have questions, I'll try to find a picture. If you Google Trigger File System or 42 folders, you'll probably find it, but I'll try to find a sample picture and throw it in the files section of our group so you have that as well. So that's the gist. Sorry this is a little bit longer video, but it does take a little time to walk through all the options, but what the target and the goal is to work through your pile and do one of those things. You're either going to dump it, do it, delegate it, or defer it. All right. Again, as I mentioned before, if you have any questions at all, please post them in the comment section down below. Be happy to try to tackle those for you. I hope you found value in the brain dump activity. I hope you find value and it feels awesome and like a weight has been lifted when you actually process your brain dump pile and get everything organized. It just makes you feel like, and that's what we want. Again, remember, we're trying to clear your mind and get you organized as to where you are at this moment in time before we really dive into goals. So we're going to move into the goals stuff here coming up. So this was just kind of preparing you to be open-minded and clear-minded for your goals for the fourth quarter. I think that's it. Otherwise, again, questions down below. Thanks so much for being part of the group. Really, really appreciate you and your involvement, and stay tuned for the actual goals here coming up. All right, take care. Have a good day. Happy Friday. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and be stalwart.